please don't politicize this virus. It exploits the differences you have at the national level. If you want to be exploited, and if you want to have many more body bags, then you do it. If you don't want many more body bags, then you refrain from politicizing it.
Oh, thanks, Dr. Tedros of the World Health Organization. Yeah, we won't politicize it. Do you want to give us some more Chinese government talking points, though? That'd be great. Why don't you tell us what a great job China's doing with this whole thing? Be fantastic. I got to tell you, there's an analysis out now that says that some of the virus outbreak in this country, according to, and I don't understand the science of this, and really nobody does except the people that do this kind of research, but according to the mutations and the proteins and whatever they got going on with the virus, it looks like a bunch of it came from Europe, and people were immediately jumping in this as, see, it came from Europe. No, it came from China to Europe, then to America. But I've told you that there's a very clear choice that's being made to take as much blame away. They view it, the left in this country views this as zero sum. They want to take as much blame away from China for this as possible because they think then it will be transferred onto Donald Trump. And then you'll have Joe Biden, who is currently in a basement somewhere pretending that he has some say in what's going on in the country, that he should be the next president of the United States. It's really stunning. And we're going to talk more about Biden and the Democrats later on today. But it is stunning that this is what they got for us. After all the crazy, oh, Trump, how can you support him? He's such a racist and he's so dumb and all the stuff that they've been saying. And they offer us up Joe Biden, a default candidate unlike any other, meaning that he is the ultimate default candidate. He's the guy you're left with when you got nobody. You know, this is just pulling a warm body in off the street and saying, yeah, let's make this guy president, basically. People know him. He's been in government a long time, but I don't want to get too far ahead of myself with this. So Dr. Tedros, PhD, he's telling us don't politicize this. And I mean, I agree with him, except the problem with politicization is that it quickly turns into a one-way fight. We know the left is politicizing this to destroy Donald Trump and his presidency. We know that we're already hearing about the racial disparities. Even Dr. Fauci talked about this, the racial disparities with this virus. What are we to make of what they're saying? What are they claiming? How do we deal with the virus and with racism? What claims are they making? I mean, it's difficult to understand. It doesn't matter how good your access to healthcare is right now. They don't have particularly strong treatments. They're hoping hydroxychloroquine, but people are going into the best hospitals in the country, people with plenty of resources, people with plenty of money, and they're still dying. So what are they telling us about the racial component of this? Are we breaking it down? Speaking of politicization, are we breaking it down by who has a pre-existing condition and who doesn't, who smokes and who doesn't? Or are we merely looking at race in this analysis? And I'm asking some of these questions. I'm asking all of them in earnest, but I don't even know necessarily what the answers are. I just think it's interesting that we're supposed to just get this takeaway of racism is making the virus worse, or there's a component of the virus response where racism plays a role. And we're all sitting here like, how? We have hospitals setting up all over to take in everybody who comes in with COVID-19. No doctor cares about the race of any patient, obviously. Doctors and nurses are being heroes. They're doing everything they can for all the patients that they can. So maybe if I find out more about this, if there's some aspect of this that I'm not bringing to your attention, I'll certainly address it. See, I like to know what the weak points are in my argument, and I like to know where there's room for debate, where there's a gray area. I like to know these things. The left just wants conformity of thought. They want conformity of action. They want you to do what they say. They think that they're just right. We understand that they have a lust for power that has not in any way been lessened under the current circumstances. If anything, I think they view the virus as a fantastic opportunity to remake the country in a big government, statist, overreaching image. I really do think that that's going on. You'll see more of that as we go forward. So Dr. Tedros is doing a lot of lecturing for people. And I would ask, the World Health Organization, how have they really stepped up here in a way that was worthwhile for us? And I would say the same about the CDC and the NIH. Why do these organizations, let me say this. I came into a CIA after 9/11, and I came in a few years, 4 years after 9/11, or 4 years, whatever it was, after 9/11. And it was an organization that was absolutely humbled. It learned a very painful lesson by missing the second Pearl Harbor, if you will, against America. And there were a lot of people in there that felt like not only there needed to be payback against the bad guys, but there needed to be a whole upping of the game of the people inside the intelligence community. Whether you think that's happened or not is a different discussion. But CDC and NIH weren't ready for this. Public health authorities weren't ready for this. They did not see this coming. They did not have the preparations in place. And they really haven't impressed us very much at all with, even when we figured out how bad it was, okay, treatments, what do we got? The fact that we're essentially doing frontline experimentation with hydroxychloroquine, yes, I think it's the right move. I've talked to lots of doctors who think it's the right move, but it's indicative of the fact that we don't have some secret weapon. Where are our super biology geniuses and medical geniuses on this issue when we need them? I think it's fair to ask. We have a respiratory disease that's going around shutting down the economy, threatening to cripple the United States for who knows how long. And the best they can give us is maybe we'll have a vaccine for you in 18 months. Yeah, we'll get some tests out and we'll do some things. I don't think it's been an impressive public health response at all. And maybe you disagree and let me know that. Let me know what I'm missing. But the CDC gets, I think, $6-7 billion a year. World Health Organization gets billions of dollars a year. It's a lot of money, a lot of staff, a lot of people. Where was the moment where that budget felt like it was justified in all of this? I mean, you could say the budget should have been a lot bigger and we should have had a lot more. Okay, I mean, I'm open to hearing that for sure. But with what we gave them, what was really the payoff? And I think I think we're allowed to answer these questions, or allowed to ask these questions, answer them. That's maybe up to somebody else. But it also is a reminder of the complete dereliction of duty that the media engaged in until now by focusing so much of our attention, by focusing so much of the national policy conversation on the threat from Russia. Attorney General Barr last night was talking about this, and let's just all be reminded that Russia was elevated by the media for purely partisan reasons, elevated as the great bad guy in world affairs. Trump was Putin's puppet. We heard about Russia and then Ukraine afterwards, but it's kind of an extension of the Russia thing. We heard about Russia more than any other country in the world the last 4 years from our own media, more than any other foreign country. It's not even close, right? We heard about Russia more than them probably by a factor of 10. Where was the real threat? Where was the real concern? Economically, from a national security perspective, and now as we see epidemiologically, it's a tough word to say. This is what the Attorney General, who is, I think he's a brilliant guy. Here's what he says. Play 5.
Given what you know today about the panoply of abuses internationally against the United States, who is the bigger threat to America's election security, Russia or China?
In my opinion, it's China. And not just to the election process, but I think across the board, there's simply no comparison. China is a very serious threat to the United States, geopolitically, economically, militarily, and a threat to the integrity of our institutions, given their ability to influence things.
No serious, intelligent person who knows what's going on in the world argues that Russia is a bigger threat than China, and yet where was the entire focus of the media for 4 years? And don't tell me that this doesn't matter. This does matter. If we had been more focused on China, if our press was willing to ask harder questions instead of really being in China's pocket in a lot of cases. I mean, today there was an article in Bloomberg, I'm paraphrasing the title, but it was more or less, don't badmouth wet markets. They bring fresh produce to millions of Chinese. Oh, don't. And now let me also say this before we get into the wet market discussion for a second. I'm more confident than ever. I've been thinking this one through. I'm more confident than ever that we're going to find out that this was understudy, that COVID-19 was under study, evaluation, and perhaps some degree of manipulation. I'm not saying it was weaponized. I'm not saying this was intentional. But I think COVID-19 came out of a lab. I think. I don't know. It's an assessment, okay? I come out of the CIA. We do a lot of assessments there. We do a lot of thinking there, and sometimes we're wrong, unfortunately, on some really big stuff. I'm telling you, my analysis is that this came from a lab, that this escaped out of a lab. How many people are going in and day out, chomping on bat soup or, pangolin stew or whatever it is that people are eating. But, Bloomberg, okay, so put that aside for a second. But Bloomberg writes an article about how, we shouldn't be so hard on the wet markets. Well, the wet markets were worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and the Chinese government was getting a cut. People spend a lot of money in these wet markets in China. And let's also remember that the reason for the wet markets, if you stretch back to the era of Mao, and then you look at Deng Xiaoping, and then you have now Xi Jinping, that was a function of poor central planning by the Chinese Communist Party. That's the only reason that you had people eating bats and toads and whatever else that they could get. And it also a lot of Chinese peasant belief, rural subsistence farmers, the belief in magical powers from eating certain animals. That's a real thing. That's widespread in some parts of China. So, the Chinese government, though, had a very big role in all of this. And we're still being told by our own media at this time that they run with these Chinese propaganda points and they don't question it, right? They'll turn on Trump, or rather they'll turn on hydroxychloroquine because it's a way of bashing Trump. But when China says, yeah, we have no new infections in Wuhan, no new deaths in Wuhan. Anyone really? They figured this out, huh? Well, can they share with us how we get to that? They're either lying, or we got a much bigger problem. They're either lying about the numbers, which I think everyone believes, or they actually have managed to control this thing in a way that nobody else has figured out. And that raises some very troubling questions about what's really going on behind the scenes in China, what they knew, when they knew it, what they're not telling us about a whole other bunch of things. So we'll see. Look, I always admit to you when I'm wrong, right? I didn't think Biden was going to end up being the nominee, but I was just giving the Democrats too much credit. I mean, they're just. I thought that they had something better than this, but it doesn't. You could pull anyone off the street and say this person's a Democrat, and as long as they're a Democrat, they'd get. They've got 48% of the vote locked in right away. So we're fighting over a very small sliver of the electorate regardless. So that's why I'm not saying, I just thought they'd go with something more inspiring than Joe Biden, but I guess I gave them too much credit. But on the Dr. Tedros situation, I don't know if we played this for yesterday, but I wanted to note that the administration is thinking about changing WHO funding. And why shouldn't there be consequences for this? People would say, oh, but Buck, they do all this great work with malaria and they do this. Okay, they do those good things. But they're also spreading Chinese propaganda, and we have a lot of international NGOs. We carry a very heavy load working on those diseases. Maybe we should just directly assist. I don't know what their plan is for where the money's going to go, but do we just keep writing checks for the World Health Organization even when they fail miserably and then spew a lot of Chinese propaganda? Here's what Mike Pompeo said, play 9.
At this point, we're reevaluating our funding with respect to the World Health Organization. This is very consistent with what President Trump said since the beginning of his campaign. Organizations have to work. They have to deliver the outcomes for which they were intended. And we need to make sure that not only the World Health Organization, but every international organization, that we take taxpayer money and give it to them for the benefit of America. We need to make sure it's delivering on those taxpayer dollars. The World Health Organization is no different in that respect. They have to execute on the mission that they are designed to achieve. And we've seen, with respect to the World Health Organization, here we are. It hasn't accomplished what it was intended to deliver.
Only in government is failure always supposed to be rewarded with more money. And in international governance, that's even more true. Right? International governance, the UN is worthless or feckless on any given issue. It's we didn't have the resources. Give us more money. Sorry. Oh. It's never that the institution is just broken or corrupt or inept or lazy. It's never that, right? It's always that they just needed more. Always need more. Not sure that that's the way we should react to the World Health Organization here. Maybe that money should go into, I don't know, elite teams of U.S. researchers who are trying to do everything they can to find a GD cure for this awful disease that has shut down the country. How about that?
So bringing us back, as the president lies so much in these press conferences, I still, for the life of me, don't understand why the networks, including our own, allow Donald Trump to lie for 2 hours to the American people. If he were giving good information, that would be one thing.
Let us fact check
But
them.
it is a lie. So if this network or CNN or Fox is going to run him lying for 2 hours a night, they need a real-time fact checker.
I actually think Joe Scarborough might be at the early phase of some kind of a breakdown. This guy's unhinged. I watch the press conference every night. I read the transcript of the press conference every day or the next day before I come on this show. If you're going to claim that the president is lying in the press conference, tell us where he's lying. What is the lie? Stop shouting idiocy and tell us if the president has lied about something that's important, I will be annoyed by that, and we should ask for accountability and we should ask for a correction. But just tell us what the lie is. Why is that? If it's all lies, why would that be hard at all? And here's another question that I would pose to the Trump lies all the time. Shouldn't the American people see what the task force, shouldn't we hear from the task force that's currently making unprecedented decisions that affect all of us? Shouldn't we hear from them about what they're doing? What could be more newsworthy than that? Is the little, social club for the intellectually insecure but financially very lucky situation of Morning Joe? That's what it is. It's a social club for the intellectually insecure but people with a lot of money, and that's who seems to want to watch that show. Do they know something about the task force that we don't? Are they more newsworthy than the task force? What would they possibly put on air at? What would MSNBC put on air at that time that would be more important than what they're saying? I'm just wondering.
What we do know is that people are still terrified. People on the front lines, whether they're a grocery store worker or someone working at a pharmacy or any of our critical workers, they still don't have personal protective equipment. PPE continually is in short supply. President Trump has been unable to effectively use the Defense Production Act to make sure that people have masks and gowns in our hospitals, to make sure we have the ventilators that we need.
We have the ventilators that we need in New York. That's already been established, and that was the big concern, was that we were going to run out of ventilators here. So that's not true. The president ramping up production. The people that are saying this tend to be the Democrats that are saying this tend to be career politicians who don't understand that you can. This is the same problem they have when they talk about health care. You can give someone a card that says you now have free government health care. That doesn't mean that there's a doctor that magically appears to provide that health care. That doesn't mean that you're good to go and everything's all taken care of. There still have to be resources. There have to actually be things that are done and things that are there for you to get the good or service that you desire. So the president has been trying to work with private industry to get all this done, to get all the masks out and everything else. Now we're finding out that we haven't yet needed as many ventilators as they thought a few weeks ago. I mean, it was going to be a catastrophic shortage, they were telling us. We were also finding out that putting people on ventilators is a last ditch effort to keep them alive, and they're desperately trying to find ways, other interventions, because it's not like you get on a ventilator and the outcomes are strong. The numbers in New York indicate that ventilator usage for people that have COVID-19 who are particularly in the high risk category is not an effective therapy. It is the last line of help that they can draw for you. So, getting all these ventilators, okay, well, that's an emergency measure. I understand that, and that's the best we've got for people that can't breathe. Understood. But we need to have stuff in front. We need to do more than that. We need to have things, therapeutics in place beforehand, so that people don't need these ventilators. The ventilators aren't really a treatment. They just extend the ability of your body to try to fight off the virus, right? I mean, the ventilators aren't by any means a cure. They just keep you alive while your body tries to fight off not just the infection, but the inflammation that this virus causes. Inflammation in the lungs in particular. So, I mean, Kirsten Gillibrand just doesn't, she's going to just blame Trump for whatever she can and say unhelpful things. There has been no rallying together. There's been no bipartisan, we're all in this together from the Democrats at all. This has always been Trump's fault. And, you've got Kamala Harris, for example. Oh, yeah, she's still out there. Remember when she was the favored candidate of the elite media for a while and got like 3% of the Democrat primary vote? And then we had to hear about how the electorate is sexist because a female Democrat can't win the primary this year. It's Democrats' problem. We're not the ones. Republicans, don't throw us in there, Democrats, because you won't put a female or a minority ahead as your nominee. It's not our fault. It's not a Republicans' fault. That's not an us situation. That's a Democrat situation. But here's what Kamala Harris has to say. Play 12.
And right now, I'm hearing all over the place that people are hoarding this drug in a way that those who need it to relieve their pain and extend the quality of their life may not be able to get it, all because the president keeps taking the stage. And as opposed to what Dr. Fauci and medical health professionals are telling us, pushing this drug. He's got to stop. We don't want a drug pusher for president. We want somebody who takes that stage and speaks to the crisis in a way that is about bringing relief.
Just such weak stuff. Just such junior varsity level thinking and analysis from Kamala Harris on this one. We don't want a drug pusher for president. And I've been hearing this now for a couple of weeks. The assault on hydroxychloroquine as a frontline treatment. Some people claim that they got better, that this saved their life. But Democrats are saying that if you want to give people that opportunity, you're now stealing it from people that need it for other reasons. Meanwhile, there are huge amounts of this drug that are made for malaria. There are huge amounts of this drug that are made for that have been made for a very long time. Why can't we get this to the critically ill patients who need it and also serve the community that, when people say that there's a shortage or they're worried about a shortage, yeah, if you go to a CVS, they may say, we need to order this for you. And that can be troubling to people that need the drug soon. But unless I hear that there's no more supply, this is overblown fear serving a political purpose. The overblown fear of there's going to be shortages of this drug for people who need it. And that also breaks in, that also has built into it an assumption that the people that people who have COVID-19 and are about to die don't need it, which they don't know. Kamala Harris doesn't know. Kamala Harris doesn't know anything. But that's a whole other situation. It's troubling. And for those who want to take this position that the Democrats care so much more about life and suffering, this is what it's turned into. I mean, I knew they would, and that's their position. Their fallback is always they're the ones who are nice and they care more about people, even though when you see that based on their actions, they're just a bunch of hypocrites that want a virtue signal. you know that they're trying to get more money. I mean, Mitch McConnell and the Republicans in Congress are trying to get more money for small business owners because we're finding out that there's going to be a few $100 billion that now we keep saying loan. It's a forgivable loan. So it's basically here's money. Do what we say with it. You get to keep it. They need to get more of that money out there. They need to put more of that money out. And so Republicans are trying to do something about it. And guess what? Guess what's happening as a result? Democrats are blocking it once again. Oh, what a shock. No one's surprised. Here you go. This is CNN. Remember, this is a news story. 10:36 a.m. Here's the CNN headline on this. This is great. This is like a propaganda course in real time. 10:36 a.m. today. Democrats block GOP-led funding boost for small business aid program. The Democrats blocked it. That's what happened. Democrats blocked this. It's a single issue change to a bill or addition to a bill to help people that are suffering terribly now. Democrats go, nope. We want to get ours. We want to get our cut. We want to get some of our projects funded through this or whatever. Nancy Pelosi's got some windmills and solar panels that need some cash. Here's the CNN headline at 11:15 a.m. They changed the headline for this story. It went from Democrats block GOP funding to this. Senate at stalemate over more COVID-19 aid after Republicans and Democrats block competing proposals. Republicans try to get more cash to people who need it. Democrats say, no, we want other things too. We all know what this is. Once again, using the pain of people across this country to leverage for themselves for political purposes that have nothing to do with the actual suffering that's going on right now. And the way this is CNN running DNC propaganda in real time. That's what this is. I could debate this with anyone and I would crush them because I'm telling the truth and they're lying. This is propaganda on behalf of the DNC. Somebody wrote a headline that reflected what was going on. And then somebody else came along and said, whoa, if you're on CNN.com right now, we need a little bit of, we need to make sure that the Democrats don't look like they're the bad guys here. That's going to upset our audience. So it's on both sides. It's not on both sides. It's the Democrats being scummy. No surprise there. Absolute scummy move here from them. And they get away with it because of stuff like this. They get away with it because of what's reported and how it's reported. Let's talk a little bit about Joe Biden, shall we? We'll come back to that in a second.
Joe Biden is now the presumptive Democratic nominee. Nobody really chose Biden for this job. He wound up in it by a series of defaults, and it shows. Ask yourself, is Joe Biden ready to lead this country? Could he find his car in a three-tiered parking garage? Could he navigate a salad bar? And by the way, what exactly is his position on the coronavirus pandemic? Those are the mysteries Democrats now face.
Producer Mark, do you think he could find his car at a three-tier garage? I don't know.
I mean, if Jerry, George, Elaine, and Kramer couldn't, I don't think Joe Biden could.
Fair point. Fair point. I think that we're going to see that Joe Biden is not up to the task. Tucker, he's great on the Biden thing because he's just we need someone who's really willing to say what we're all thinking about this. And the Democrats, I've described this before as the El Cid strategy, right? The El Cid movie where the Spanish military commander during the expulsion of the Moors from Spain, he's dead from an arrow wound, but they put him on a horse and they have him ride out to lead a charge to break the last stand of the enemy. They're just Biden. Clearly Biden is alive and well, and we wish him good health for many, many years to come. But Biden is just the warm body that they've picked to be the Democrat nominee while they create some storyline around why he's a great choice. None of them believe it, but they're all going to say it. None of them believe it. They're all going to say it. And you could say, well, Buck, he's been able to raise money and that's because the apparatus is, and this is like when they can make a pop star out of somebody who's not very talented. If you give somebody enough exposure, enough money, enough glitz and glam, you can take somebody who's not really all that great and make them into some kind of a superstar. Jennifer Lopez. So I'm, just saying. And here we are being told that Joe Biden is the guy that should be the next president of the United States. And when you start to look at this, you say, how can anyone think that? I mean, here's Biden talking about how we should be dealing with, here's just him talking about health insurance, for example. Play 14.
We have to make sure everyone has access to maintain affordable health insurance coverage. We should be making it easier, not harder, to make sure to make sense to, I'll put it another way. It makes no sense.
Makes sense of the Oh yeah. This guy is the second coming of George Washington. Cincinnatus himself. Pericles in the flesh. Abraham Lincoln reborn. Pick your world leader. Margaret Thatcher reanimated. I don't know. Pick somebody. That's right. Joe Biden. He'll get it done. I got to say, the debates with Biden and Trump will be quite a spectacle. And I do not think it will go well. You'll recall that Biden and Paul Ryan debated a long time ago, and Paul Ryan showed up and he took the kind of Paul Ryan approach, which is a little bit of a Boy Scout. No offense to Boy Scouts, but he's very earnest and very yes sir, no ma'am, and people say that I kind of sound like that sometimes, so I get it. But Biden was just, just 7 little chipmunks sitting on a branch, eating a lot of acorns on my uncle's ranch. Step into my office, Paul Ryan. I mean, that was how the whole thing went. And Paul Ryan was like, but I've got numbers and I've, the stapler, the data, the stapler. And it didn't go well for him in that VP debate. Now, I don't think that really mattered. I think Obama was going to beat McCain anyway. Obama was going to beat Romney anyway, pardon me. There was a different vice president back in 2008, 2009 on the Republican side. And I just think that right now, though, you have Trump, who that will play right into his strengths if Biden tries that. If Biden just tries to go at him with everything he's got, he's going to get little Marco'd. And little Marco never recovered from coming at Trump the way that Trump comes at other people. That's not, you can't out Trump. Dare I say, you can't Trump. Sorry, it's been a long day already. So then we get into, will they come out and vote will the Bernie Sanders supporters come out and vote for Joe Biden? I think this is a very an interesting question. I do believe they will. I think they will. I wish I could tell you they won't. And Biden knows that. So he's going to try to co-opt the progressive left revolutionary wannabe movement of Bernie Sanders. And here's how it sounds. Play 10.
Earlier today, my good friend, and he is a friend, Bernie Sanders, announced he was suspending his campaign. Bernie's always been a passionate voice for progress, and he put his heart and soul not only into running for president, but also the causes and issues he has been dedicated to his whole life. He's inspired and energized millions of supporters, especially young voters, to join him in championing a progressive vision for our country. And he didn't just run a political campaign, he created a movement. And that's a good thing for the nation and for our future. While Bernie's campaign has ended, I know his leadership is going to continue, including working to address the incredible challenges we're now facing, the ones that are facing this nation under this president.
They're going to say everything they can to make this all about how Trump is so terrible. Meanwhile, look what's going on. Just remember this. Look what's going on in the UK, in Italy, in Spain. Massive suffering. Death by the thousands, by the tens of thousands. Lockdowns, economic destruction, dislocation. What government, they're going to try to feed you a lie here. And the lie is that if only a Democrat had been in charge, everything would have been so much better. That's simply not true. And if they want to make the case that there are things that they believe that Trump failed in specifically, other than just saying he lies. I mean, this is like a mania that they have. This is some compulsion to just scream about how Trump lies. He lies. Okay, well, what did he do that was wrong, and how does that line up with what people would have expected then and what the facts were at that time? It's just not. It's not there yet. Yeah. Do I think that Trump was a little bit too willing to say, you know, it's okay, everybody, it's okay. Maybe, but, you know, at the time, what benefit would it have served? Imagine if Trump had come out 8 weeks ago and said, lock down the whole economy. We're seeing the whole economy locked down right now with the worst of the COVID-19 spread happening today in real time, or the worst of the COVID-19 deaths, happening today in real time. And people are starting to say, how long are we going to do this for? You think we're going to do this 3 months ago? We're going to say, let's lock down the whole economy. Let's shut it all down. Based on what? China was telling us it wasn't that bad. It wasn't until it hit Italy that we knew what we were facing. And at that point, it was already spreading pretty freely in the United States. So what was he going to do differently? Unless he had dramatically different information. And I have not yet seen evidence of that. But Joe Biden's he's going to Joe Biden just make crap up.